The clock showed 12:15 when little Rosa walked down the empty hallway of Lincoln Elementary School. Most kids were outside playing or sitting in the cafeteria eating their lunch. But Rosa had a different plan. She wanted to find the old piano she had heard about from her friend Jenny. Rosa was not like other 10-year-old girls in her class. While they talked about toys and games, she found herself drawn to music. Every morning on the way to school, she would listen to the sounds around her, the birds singing in the trees, the car engines humming, even the squeaky wheels of grocery carts made music in her ears. But there was one sound she loved more than anything else: piano music. Her grandmother used to hum beautiful melodies while cooking dinner. Rosa would sit at the kitchen table doing homework, but really she was listening to those sweet tunes. Sometimes she would close her eyes and imagine fingers dancing on piano keys, creating those magical sounds. She had never touched a real piano before, but something deep inside her heart told her she needed to try. The music room door was slightly open. Rosa peeked inside and saw it, an old brown piano sitting in the corner like a forgotten friend. The room smelled like dust and old books. Sunlight came through the dirty windows, making small dancing patterns on the floor. Rosa looked left and right to make sure no one was watching, then quietly stepped inside. The piano looked tired and lonely. Some of its white keys were yellow with age, and a few black keys had small chips on them. Rosa could tell that not many people played this instrument anymore. She walked closer and noticed that when she pressed some keys, they felt sticky and made strange sounds. This piano had seen better days, but to Rosa, it was the most beautiful thing in the world. She sat on the small wooden bench and placed her small hands on the keys. Her heart was beating fast with excitement. This was the moment she had been dreaming about for so long. Rosa took a deep breath and began to play the melody her grandmother always hummed. But something amazing happened. More music came from her fingers than just that simple tune. It was like the piano was talking to her, telling her which keys to press next. Her left hand found deep, rich notes that made the melody sound fuller and more beautiful. Her right hand danced across the higher keys, adding sparkles of sound that made the music come alive. Rosa had never taken a piano lesson in her life, but somehow she knew exactly what to do. The music filled the empty room and spilled out into the hallway. It was not just the simple tune her grandmother hummed anymore. Rosa was creating something new, something that came from deep inside her heart. The melody grew stronger and more complex, like a flower blooming in fast motion. She pressed the keys with more feeling, more passion, wanting to share all the music that had been trapped inside her for so long. But the old piano was not ready for such beautiful, powerful playing. One of the hammers inside, which had been loose for months, could not handle the strength of Rosa's passionate performance. With a small crack sound that Rosa did not even hear over her playing, the hammer broke completely. Rosa was so lost in her music that she did not notice anything wrong. The melody in her head was so clear and beautiful that she kept playing, even when some keys stopped making sound. She was in her own musical world, a place where everything made perfect sense and every note felt like home. Then the music room door opened wide with a loud bang. Mrs. Peterson, the music teacher, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and an angry look on her face. She had been looking for whoever was making noise during lunchtime. When she saw Rosa sitting at the piano and then noticed that several keys were not working, her face turned red with anger. "What do you think you are doing?" Mrs. Peterson shouted, making Rosa jump and pull her hands away from the keys like they were hot. "You have broken school property." Rosa looked at the piano keys, then at Mrs. Peterson, then back at the keys. She did not understand what had happened. She was just playing music, sharing the beautiful sounds that lived in her heart. How could making music break anything? "I was just playing," Rosa whispered, her voice so quiet that Mrs. Peterson had to lean forward to hear her. Tears started forming in Rosa's eyes. She had never been in trouble at school before, and she definitely never meant to break anything. Mrs. Peterson walked over to the piano and pressed the keys that were not working. "Look at this mess. These keys are completely broken. Do you have any idea how much it costs to fix a piano?" She did not wait for Rosa to answer. "You were being careless and rough, and now the school will have to spend money we do not have to fix your mistake." But Rosa had not been careless or rough. She had played with love and feeling, the way her heart told her to play. She tried to explain this to Mrs. Peterson, but the teacher was too angry to listen. More tears started rolling down Rosa's cheeks as she tried to find the right words. "My grandmother's song," Rosa said softly. "I was playing my grandmother's song." And then more music came. "I did not mean to break anything, the music just wanted to come out." Mrs. Peterson did not understand what Rosa meant about music wanting to come out. All she saw was a broken piano and a little girl who would not take responsibility for her actions. She marched Rosa straight to the principal's office, her heavy footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Principal Williams listened as Mrs. Peterson explained what happened. Rosa sat in the big chair across from his desk, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her life. Her feet did not even touch the floor, and she kept wiping tears from her face with the back of her hand. "Rosa, your family will need to pay for the piano repairs," Principal Williams said in his serious voice. "We cannot have students damaging school equipment even by accident. I am going to call your mother right now." Rosa's heart sank even deeper. She knew her mother worked very hard, cleaning houses to pay for their small apartment and food. Money was always tight, and Rosa had heard her mother crying at night sometimes when she thought Rosa was asleep, worried about paying bills. Now Rosa had created a big problem that would cost money they did not have. The phone call seemed to last forever. Rosa could hear her mother's tired voice on the other end asking questions and sounding confused. When Principal Williams hung up, he told Rosa that her mother was coming to school right away. Rosa sat in that big chair for what felt like hours, thinking about how disappointed her mother would be. She thought about the beautiful music that had come from her fingers, and how it had felt like the most natural thing in the world. She did not understand how something so beautiful could cause so much trouble. When her mother finally arrived, Rosa could see the worry and exhaustion in her eyes. This was going to change everything, and Rosa did not even know how. Rosa's mother, Carmen, arrived at the school still wearing her yellow cleaning gloves and carrying the smell of floor polish on her clothes. She had rushed from Mrs. Johnson's house where she was scrubbing bathrooms to get to the school as fast as possible. Her heart was pounding, not from running, but from worry about what her daughter could have possibly done. Carmen worked 3 jobs just to keep food on their table and pay rent for their tiny apartment. In the morning, she cleaned office buildings before most people even woke up. In the afternoon, she cleaned houses for wealthy families. At night, she worked at a laundromat folding clothes until her back ached. Every dollar mattered in their small world. When Principal Williams explained about the broken piano and the repair costs, Carmen felt her stomach drop like a stone. $250 might as well have been $2,000. She looked at Rosa sitting in that big chair, tears still wet on her cheeks, and tried to stay calm. "Rosa, tell me exactly what happened," Carmen said in Spanish, their language of home and comfort. She wanted to understand everything before making any decisions. Rosa's voice was shaky as she explained about the beautiful music, about her grandmother's song, and how the piano seemed to sing with her. She tried to describe the feeling of her fingers knowing exactly where to go, but the words felt too small for such a big experience. Carmen listened carefully. She had never seen Rosa get into trouble before. Her daughter was quiet, respectful, and spent most of her free time drawing pictures or humming quietly while doing homework. This story about passionate piano playing did not sound like the Rosa she knew. "Show me," Carmen said quietly. Principal Williams looked confused. "Show you what?" "Show me how she was playing," Carmen repeated. She turned to Rosa. "Can you show me with your hands what you were doing?" Rosa wiped her eyes and slowly lifted her hands. Without thinking, she began moving her fingers in the air, recreating the exact movements she had made on the piano keys. Her left hand moved in steady, strong patterns while her right hand danced with quick, delicate touches. Even without sound, Carmen could see there was something special happening. But then, something incredible occurred. Rosa began to hum the melody she had been playing, and her hands moved perfectly in time with the music. The tune was complex and beautiful, nothing like the simple songs Carmen remembered from her own childhood. This was real music, grown-up music coming from her 10-year-old daughter. Carmen's mouth opened slightly in surprise. She had heard Rosa humming around the house before, but she had always been too busy with work and worries to really listen. Now, watching her daughter's fingers dance through an invisible song, she realized she had been missing something very important. "Where did you learn this song?" Carmen asked. "I did not learn it," Rosa said, still moving her hands. "It just came out. Grandma's song was there, but then more music wanted to come too. Like the piano was telling me what to play next." Principal Williams and Mrs. Peterson exchanged looks. They thought Rosa was making up stories to avoid getting in trouble. But Carmen was seeing something they could not see. She was seeing her daughter's soul speaking through her fingertips. "We need to go home," Carmen said firmly. She turned to Principal Williams. "I will find a way to pay for the piano, but I need time." The drive home was quiet, except for Rosa's soft humming in the back seat. Carmen's mind was racing with questions and a strange feeling she could not name. When they got to their apartment building, Carmen had an idea. Their neighbor Mr. Chen lived in the apartment next to theirs. He was an old man from China who had lived in America for many years. Carmen often heard classical music playing from his apartment, and she knew he had been some kind of music teacher before he retired. Maybe he could help her understand what she had witnessed at school. "Rosa, go to your room and do your homework," Carmen said. "I need to talk to someone." Carmen knocked on Mr. Chen's door, still wearing her cleaning clothes and feeling embarrassed about bothering him. When he opened the door, she could hear soft piano music playing from a small radio in his kitchen. "Mrs. Lopez, is everything okay?" Mr. Chen asked in his gentle voice. He had always been kind to Carmen and Rosa, sometimes bringing them homemade soup when Rosa was sick. "Mr. Chen, I need to ask you something strange," Carmen began. She told him about what happened at school, about Rosa's hands moving like she was playing invisible music, and about the beautiful humming that seemed too advanced for a child. Mr. Chen listened with growing interest. "Has Rosa ever taken music lessons?" he asked. "Never. We cannot afford lessons. She has never even touched a piano before today." "Would you mind if I listened to her?" Mr. Chen asked. Sometimes children have natural gifts that surprise everyone. Carmen went to get Rosa, who was nervous about meeting their neighbor. But Mr. Chen had a warm smile and spoke to her like she was important, not like she was just a kid who had gotten in trouble. "Rosa, your mother tells me you love music," Mr. Chen said. "Would you sing the song you were playing today?" Rosa looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Then she began to hum the same complex melody from the school piano. As she hummed, her hands automatically began moving, conducting an invisible orchestra. Mr. Chen's eyes grew wide. After Rosa finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to a small keyboard in the corner of his living room, one that Carmen had never noticed before. "Rosa, can you try playing your song on this?" he asked. Rosa approached the keyboard, like it was made of gold. She placed her small hands on the keys and began to play. The same beautiful, complex music filled the room, but now it was even more amazing because they could hear every note clearly. Mr. Chen sat down heavily in his chair, his face showing complete amazement. He had taught music for 40 years, and he had never heard anything like this from an untrained child. Rosa was not just playing notes. She was creating music with feeling, with understanding, with a natural sense of rhythm and harmony that took most students years to develop. "Carmen," Mr. Chen said quietly, his voice full of wonder, "your daughter has an extraordinary gift. This is not normal talent. This is something very, very special." Carmen felt tears coming to her eyes, but these were different tears than the worried ones from earlier. These were tears of realization, of pride, of sudden understanding that her quiet little girl had been carrying something magical inside her all along. "What do we do?" Carmen asked. She thought about the broken piano, the money they did not have, and the long days of work ahead of her. We help her grow this gift, Mr. Chen said simply. But first, we need to let her play more music. Rosa, do you know any other songs? Rosa smiled for the first time since the morning. She placed her hands on the keyboard again and began to play a different melody, one that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her memory. Then another song, and another. Each one was more beautiful than the last. Carmen realized that everything had changed in one single day. Her daughter was not just Rosa anymore. She was Rosa the musician, Rosa the gifted child, Rosa who had a future that Carmen had never imagined possible. But first, they still had to figure out how to pay for that broken piano. The next morning, Carmen woke up before her alarm clock as usual. But instead of rushing to get ready for work, she sat on the edge of her bed thinking about everything that had happened. Rosa's beautiful music kept playing in her mind, like a movie she could not stop watching. She had barely slept, not because of worry this time, but because of excitement mixed with fear. How could she help Rosa develop this amazing gift when they could barely afford groceries? The broken piano bill was still hanging over their heads, like a dark cloud. Carmen had counted and recounted the money in her old coffee can 3 times the night before. Even if she skipped buying new shoes for Rosa this month and ate rice and beans for 2 weeks straight, they were still $50 short. Rosa came to the kitchen for breakfast, moving quietly like she always did. But Carmen noticed something different about her daughter. There was a small light in her eyes that had not been there before, like someone had lit a tiny candle inside her heart. "Mama," Rosa said softly while eating her cereal, "Mr. Chen said he would teach me music theory." "What is music theory?" Carmen smiled despite her worries. "I do not know, mija, but if Mr. Chen wants to teach you, it must be something good." After Rosa left for school, Carmen went to her first cleaning job with a heavy heart. She scrubbed floors and cleaned bathrooms, but her mind kept wandering to her daughter's fingers dancing on those piano keys. When Mrs. Patterson, her employer, asked if everything was okay, Carmen found herself telling the whole story. Mrs. Patterson listened with growing interest. She was a kind woman who had always treated Carmen with respect, unlike some of the other families Carmen worked for. "You know, Carmen," Mrs. Patterson said thoughtfully, "my daughter took piano lessons for years. We have an old keyboard in the garage that we never use anymore. Would Rosa like to have it?" Carmen's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Mrs. Patterson, I cannot afford to pay you for it right now." "Pay me?" Mrs. Patterson laughed. "Carmen, you have been cleaning my house perfectly for 2 years. This is a gift. Let me help your daughter's talent grow." That afternoon, Mrs. Patterson's husband loaded the keyboard into their truck and drove it to Carmen's apartment. It was not a fancy instrument, but it had full-sized keys and could make beautiful sounds. When Rosa came home from school and saw it sitting in their small living room, she gasped like she had discovered buried treasure. But their happiness was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Mr. Thompson from the school district's main office. He had come to talk about the piano repair bill and what would happen if they could not pay it. "Mrs. Lopez," Mr. Thompson said in his official voice, "the school board has decided that if the repair costs are not paid within 2 weeks, Rosa will be suspended from all music-related activities. She will also receive a mark on her permanent record for destruction of school property." Carmen felt her heart sink. A mark on Rosa's record could affect her chances of getting into good schools later, and being banned from music activities seemed especially cruel now that they knew about Rosa's gift. "Sir, my daughter did not mean to break anything," Carmen said, trying to keep her voice steady. "She was just playing music." "Intent does not matter," Mr. Thompson replied coldly. "Damage was done and someone has to pay for it." After he left, Carmen sat on their small couch feeling defeated. Rosa curled up next to her, sensing her mother's sadness. "Mama, I am sorry I caused so much trouble," Rosa whispered. "You did not cause trouble, mija. You made beautiful music, that is never wrong." Mr. Chen knocked on their door that evening, carrying an old music book and wearing a gentle smile. When Carmen told him about Mr. Thompson's visit, his face grew serious. "This is not right," Mr. Chen said firmly. "Rosa has a gift that should be celebrated, not punished, but first let me work with her on some basics." For the next hour, Carmen watched as Mr. Chen taught Rosa about musical notes, scales, and simple theory. Rosa absorbed everything like a sponge soaking up water. She asked smart questions that surprised even Mr. Chen. "Rosa," Mr. Chen said after she played a perfect scale on her new keyboard, "you understand music in a way that takes most people years to learn. Your mind thinks in musical patterns naturally." "What does that mean?" Rosa asked. "It means you have something very special inside you. But special gifts need to be shared with the world, not hidden away." Mr. Chen had an idea. The community center in their neighborhood held a small talent show every month. It was nothing fancy, just local people sharing their abilities with friends and neighbors. But it might be a way for Rosa to show others what she could do. "I do not know," Carmen said hesitantly. "What if people think she is showing off? What if they think she is amazing?" Mr. Chen replied. "Carmen, you cannot hide Rosa's light under a basket. The world needs to hear her music." The talent show was still 2 weeks away, the same deadline the school had given them for paying the piano repair bill. Carmen made a difficult decision. She would let Rosa perform, but she would also pick up extra cleaning jobs to try to earn the money they needed. For the next few days, Carmen worked longer hours than ever before. She cleaned houses until her hands were raw and her back ached constantly. Meanwhile, Rosa practiced on her keyboard every evening with Mr. Chen's guidance. Her playing grew more confident and even more beautiful each day. But word about Rosa's talent was starting to spread in their small neighborhood. Mrs. Garcia from the apartment upstairs heard the music through the thin walls and asked Carmen about it. When Carmen explained, Mrs. Garcia insisted on hearing Rosa play in person. Soon, other neighbors began stopping by. They would sit in Carmen's tiny living room, drinking coffee and listening to 10-year-old Rosa create magic with her fingers. Word spread from apartment to apartment, building to building. Antonio, who owned the small music store on Main Street, heard about Rosa from his customer, Mrs. Garcia. He had been struggling to keep his store open because not many people bought instruments anymore. But he was curious about this child everyone was talking about. One Saturday morning, Antonio knocked on their door with an unusual offer. "I heard your daughter plays piano beautifully," he said to Carmen. "My store has several keyboards and a piano that no one ever gets to hear. Would Rosa like to come practice on real instruments sometimes? I could use the music in my store." Carmen was suspicious at first. "What would this cost us?" "Nothing," Antonio smiled. "I love music, and I miss hearing it in my store. If Rosa practices there sometimes, it would make me happy. Plus, she could try different instruments and see what she likes best." Rosa's eyes lit up like fireworks. The idea of playing on different pianos and keyboards was like a dream come true. But even with these new opportunities, the school's deadline was getting closer. Carmen had managed to save only half the money they needed. She was exhausted from working so many extra hours, and she did not know where else to turn. The night before the talent show, Rosa could not sleep. She was excited and nervous at the same time. This would be the first time she performed for people outside their small circle of neighbors and friends. "Mama," she whispered in the dark, "what if I make mistakes?" "Mija," Carmen whispered back, "your music comes from your heart. Hearts do not make mistakes when they are sharing love." Neither of them knew that tomorrow night would change their lives forever. The day of the talent show arrived gray and cloudy, matching Carmen's worried mood. She had spent the morning at her cleaning job, but her mind was completely focused on Rosa's performance that evening. They still needed $100 to pay the school, and tomorrow was the deadline. Carmen had even considered asking her boss for an advance on her pay, but she was too proud to admit their desperate situation. Rosa spent the afternoon at Antonio's music store, practicing on his best piano. The old man watched her with amazement as she played piece after piece, each one more beautiful than the last. Other customers stopped their shopping just to listen to the music flowing from this small girl's fingers. "Rosa," Antonio said after she finished a particularly moving melody, "tonight you will show everyone how special you are. Do not be nervous. Just let your heart speak through the music like you always do. But Rosa was nervous. She had never performed for strangers before, only for family and neighbors who already loved her. What if the people at the talent show did not understand her music? What if they thought she was just a silly little girl pretending to be important? Dr. Williams, a customer who had been listening while shopping for guitar strings, approached them with curiosity in his eyes. He was a music professor at the local college and had been completely captivated by Rosa's playing. "Excuse me," Dr. Williams said to Antonio, "but who is this remarkable young pianist? I have been listening for the past 20 minutes and I am absolutely amazed by her natural ability." Antonio proudly introduced Rosa and told Dr. Williams about her story. The broken piano at school, her family's struggle to pay for repairs, and tonight's talent show performance. Dr. Williams shook his head in disbelief. This child should be encouraged and supported, not punished for having extraordinary talent. Would it be all right if I attended the talent show tonight? I would very much like to hear more of her music. Rosa blushed, but nodded shyly. Having a real music professor want to hear her play made her feel both excited and terrified at the same time. That evening, the community center was more crowded than usual. Word had spread through the neighborhood about the little girl who could make magic with piano keys. Carmen helped Rosa get ready in the small bathroom behind the stage, brushing her daughter's long black hair and smoothing down her best dress, a simple blue one that Carmen had bought at a thrift store, but had washed and ironed until it looked brand new. "Remember, mija," Carmen whispered as she hugged Rosa, "you are not performing to impress anyone. You are sharing your gift because it brings joy to people. That is what your grandmother would want." The talent show began with the usual mix of community performers. Mrs. Henderson sang an old country song that made everyone smile. Two teenagers performed a comedy skit that had the audience laughing. A local man played guitar and sang songs he had written himself. Everyone was having fun, but there was a feeling of anticipation in the air. People had come specifically to hear Rosa play. When her name was called, Rosa walked slowly to the old upright piano on the small stage. Her legs felt shaky, and her heart was beating so fast she was sure everyone could hear it. She sat on the bench and looked out at all the faces staring at her expectantly. For a moment, panic filled her chest. These people were expecting something amazing, and what if she disappointed them? What if her fingers forgot how to find the right keys? What if the music that always lived in her heart suddenly went silent? But then she saw her mother's encouraging smile from the front row. She saw Mr. Chen nodding at her with confidence. She saw Antonio giving her a thumbs up. And she remembered what her grandmother used to say about music being a gift that was meant to be shared, not kept hidden. Rosa placed her small hands on the piano keys and began to play. The first notes were soft and gentle, like a lullaby. But gradually the music grew more complex and powerful. Rosa played the melody her grandmother used to hum, but then she added her own musical ideas to it. Her left hand created rich, deep harmonies, while her right hand danced across the higher keys with delicate beauty. The community center fell completely silent except for the sound of Rosa's music. People stopped whispering to each other. Children stopped fidgeting in their seats. Even the babies seemed to listen quietly to the extraordinary sounds coming from this little girl. But Rosa was not thinking about the audience anymore. She was lost in her music, traveling to that special place where melodies lived and harmonies were born. She played with such feeling and passion that tears began forming in the eyes of many listeners. Dr. Williams sat in the back row, his mouth slightly open in amazement. He had heard professional pianists who could not play with this level of natural musicality and emotional depth. This child was not just talented, she was gifted beyond anything he had ever witnessed. When Rosa finished her first piece, the silence continued for several seconds. Then the applause began. Not polite clapping, but the kind of enthusiastic appreciation that comes from people who have just experienced something truly special. "More! More!" someone shouted from the audience, and soon other voices joined in. Rosa looked at her mother, who was wiping tears from her eyes and nodding encouragingly. So Rosa played another piece, this one even more complex and beautiful than The first, then another and another. Each song seemed to come from a different part of her soul, telling different stories through the language of music. Dr. Williams quietly took out his phone and began recording Rosa's performance. He had never done this at a community talent show before, but he knew he was witnessing something extraordinary that needed to be preserved. After Rosa played her final piece, a joyful, celebratory melody that had everyone in the audience feeling uplifted, the applause went on for several minutes. People stood up from their seats, some wiping tears from their eyes, others shaking their heads in wonder. "That was the most beautiful music I have ever heard," said Mrs. Patterson, Carmen's employer, who had come to support Rosa. "I have chills all over my arms," whispered Jenny's mother to her friend. Dr. Williams approached Carmen after the show, his eyes bright with excitement. "Mrs. Lopez, your daughter has an extraordinary gift that should be shared with the world. With your permission, I would like to post the video I recorded tonight on social media. I think people need to hear Rosa's story and her incredible music." Carmen hesitated. She was a private person who did not like attention, but she thought about Rosa's talent being hidden while they struggled with school bills and financial problems. "Will it help people understand that she did not mean to break that piano?" Carmen asked. "I think it will help people understand much more than that," Dr. Williams replied with a knowing smile. That night, as Rosa slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, Dr. Williams uploaded the video to his social media accounts. He wrote a simple caption: 10-year-old Rosa was accused of breaking her school piano. After hearing her play tonight, I think you will understand that this child's musical gift should be celebrated, not punished. Neither Carmen nor Rosa knew that by morning their lives would be completely different. The video was already beginning to spread across the internet, carrying Rosa's beautiful music and incredible story to people around the world. Carmen woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing non-stop on the kitchen table. She stumbled out of bed, confused and worried. It was only 6 in the morning, and her phone never rang this early unless something was wrong. Rosa was still sleeping, peacefully in their small bedroom, exhausted from her amazing performance the night before. When Carmen picked up her phone, she could not believe what she saw. Dozens of missed calls, hundreds of text messages, and notifications from apps she did not even know she had. Her hands shook as she tried to understand what was happening. The first call was from her sister in Texas, crying with excitement. Carmen, Rosa is famous. She is all over the internet. Everyone is sharing a video of her playing piano." Carmen's heart started beating fast. "What video? What are you talking about?" "Check Facebook. Check everything. That professor man posted Rosa playing, and now millions of people have seen it. Carmen, she's going to be on the news." Carmen hung up and quickly opened her social media apps. What she saw made her sit down hard on her old kitchen chair. The video of Rosa playing at the talent show had been shared thousands and thousands of times. People from all over the world were commenting, saying things like, "This child is a miracle," and "I have never heard anything so beautiful," and "Someone needs to help this little girl develop her gift." But it was not just the music people were talking about. Dr. Williams had included Rosa's story in his post about the broken piano, the school demanding money, and Rosa being punished for having an extraordinary talent. People were outraged that such a gifted child was being treated unfairly. Rosa came to the kitchen, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mama, why is your phone making so much noise?" Before Carmen could answer, there was a loud knock on their apartment door. Carmen opened it to find a woman with a big camera and a man holding a microphone. "Mrs. Lopez? I am Patricia Rodriguez from Channel 7 News. We would like to talk to you and Rosa about her incredible musical talent. Can we come in?" Carmen felt overwhelmed and scared. She had never dealt with reporters before, and she did not know if talking to them was a good idea. "I need to think about this," Carmen said politely but firmly. "Can you come back later?" More reporters arrived throughout the morning. Carmen kept the curtains closed and tried to keep Rosa calm, but they could hear people talking outside their apartment building. The phone kept ringing with calls from news stations, radio shows, and people claiming to be from record companies. Mr. Chen knocked gently on their door around noon, carrying a bag of groceries and wearing a big smile. Carmen Rosa, the whole world has discovered what we already knew, he said warmly. But I thought you might need some help understanding what is happening. Mr. Chen sat with them and helped Carmen read through some of the messages on her phone. Music teachers from famous schools were offering Rosa free lessons. Piano companies wanted to give her instruments. Musicians were inviting her to perform with them. But most importantly, people from all over the world were offering to help pay for the broken school piano. Look at this, Mr. Chen said, showing them a special fundraising page that someone had created. People have already donated more than enough money to fix that piano. In fact, they have donated enough to buy several new pianos for your school. Rosa's eyes grew wide with wonder. People I do not even know want to help me? Rosa, your music touched their hearts, Mr. Chen explained. When people hear something beautiful, they want to protect it and help it grow. Carmen was still worried about all the attention. She was a private person who liked their quiet life, even if it was difficult sometimes. But she also knew that this could be Rosa's chance to develop her gift in ways they had never imagined possible. Dr. Williams called them personally that afternoon. Mrs. Lopez, I hope you are not upset about the video. I truly believe the world needed to hear Rosa's story and her music. I am not upset, Carmen said honestly. I am just scared. I do not know how to handle all this attention. I understand, Dr. Williams replied. But I want you to know that several very reputable music schools have contacted me. They want to offer Rosa full scholarships, not just for piano lessons, but for a complete music education. These are opportunities that could change her life, forever. That evening, Antonio from the music store came to visit with surprising news. Carmen, I have had reporters in my store all day asking about Rosa, but more importantly, the Wilson Music Academy called me. They want to meet Rosa and discuss giving her a full scholarship to their prestigious program. Carmen had heard of the Wilson Academy. It was where rich families sent their children to get the best music education money could buy. She had never dreamed that Rosa could attend such a place. What would this mean? Carmen asked. It would mean Rosa could study with the best teachers in the state, Antonio explained. She would have access to beautiful instruments, music theory classes, and the chance to perform with other gifted young musicians. And it would not cost you anything. But the most wonderful surprise came the next day. Principal Williams from Rosa's school called with a completely different tone than before. Mrs. Lopez, I want to apologize for how we handled the piano situation, he said, sounding embarrassed. We have received so many calls from people wanting to donate money for new instruments that we can completely renovate our music program. We would also like to invite Rosa to be our school's first student ambassador for the arts. Carmen could hardly believe what she was hearing. What does that mean? It means Rosa would have special privileges to use our music room whenever she wants, and we would like her to perform at school events to inspire other students. We also want to formally apologize for accusing her of damaging school property. Rosa listened to all these conversations with wide eyes and a growing smile, but the thing that made her happiest was not the fame or the opportunities. It was seeing her mother finally relaxed and hopeful, instead of worried and tired all the time. 6 months later, Rosa was thriving at the Wilson Academy. She studied piano with Master Chen's cousin, an internationally famous pianist who was amazed by Rosa's natural ability. Carmen had been able to quit 2 of her 3 jobs because several music lovers had set up a fund to help support Rosa's education and their family's needs. But Rosa never forgot where she came from or the lessons she learned from that broken piano. Every weekend, she returned to Antonio's music store to give free piano lessons to children from their neighborhood who could not afford formal instruction. Music should be for everyone, Rosa would tell her young students. It does not matter if you are rich or poor, if you have a fancy piano or just a broken one. What matters is the music that lives in your heart. The old piano that started it all was eventually fixed and placed in the main hallway of Rosa's elementary school. A small plaque next to it read, "Sometimes what looks like an ending is really a beginning. Sometimes what sounds like noise is really music waiting to be heard." Rosa's story became famous around the world, not just because of her incredible talent, but because it reminded people that gifts can be found in the most unexpected places. Her grandmother's simple melody had grown into a symphony that touched millions of hearts, proving that beautiful music, like hope itself, can never really be broken.